Reading through the Bible in 1 year, October 27th, 2 Kings chapter 8, 1 Timothy chapter 5, Daniel 12, and Psalms 119, verses 49 through 72. Now Elisha spoke to the woman whose son he had restored to life, saying, "Arise, and go with your household, and sojourn wherever you can sojourn, for the Lord has called for a famine, and it will come on the land for 7 years." So the woman arose and did according to the word of the man of God, and she went with her household and sojourned in the land of the Philistines for 7 years. At the end of 7 years, the woman returned from the land of the Philistines, and she went to appeal to the king for her house and for her field. Now the king was talking with Gehazi, the servant of the man of God, saying, "Please relate to me all the great things that Elisha had done." As he was relating to the king how he had restored to life the one who was dead, behold, the woman whose son he had restored to life appealed to the king for her house and for her field. And Gehazi said, "My lord, O king, this is the woman and her son whom Elisha restored to life." When the king asked the woman, she related it to him. So the king appointed for her a certain officer, saying, "Restore all that was hers and all the produce of the field from the day that she left the land even until now." Then Elisha came to Damascus. Now Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, was sick, and it was told him, saying, "The man of God has come here." And the king said to Hazael, "Take a gift in your hand, and go meet the man of God, and inquire of the Lord by him, saying, 'Will I recover from this sickness?'" So Hazael went to meet him, and took the gift in his hand, and every kind of good thing, even every kind of good thing of Damascus, 40 camels loads. And he came and stood before him and said, "Your son, Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, has sent me to you, saying, 'Will I recover from this sickness?'" Then Elisha said to him, "Go. Say to him, 'You will surely recover, but the Lord has shown me that he will certainly die.'" And he fixed his gaze steadily on him until he was ashamed. He stared at him until the guy got uncomfortable. And then the man of God wept. And Hazael said, "Well, why does my Lord weep?" Very uncomfortable situation. Then he answered, "Because I know the evil that you will do to the sons of Israel. Their strongholds you will set on fire, and their young men you will kill with the sword. Even their little ones you will dash in pieces, and their women with child you will rip open." And Hazael said, But what is your servant who was but a dog, that he should do this great thing?" And Elisha answered, "The Lord has shown me that you will be king over Aram." So he departed from Elisha and returned to his master, who said to him, "What did Elisha say to you?" And he answered, "Well, he told me that you would surely recover." On the following day, he took the cover and dipped it in water and spread it over his face so that he died. He suffocated him to death. And Hazael became king in his place. Now, in the 5th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, Jehoshaphat being the king of Judah, Joram, the king of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, became king. That's a lot of becames in one sentence. He was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. He had walked in the way of the kings of Israel, just as the house of Ahab had done, for the daughter of Ahab became his wife, and he did evil in the sight of the Lord. However, the Lord was not willing to destroy Judah for the sake of David, his servant, since he had promised him to give him a lamp to give a lamp to him through his sons always. In his days, Edom revolted from under the hand of Judah and made a king over themselves. Then Joram crossed over to Zair and all his chariots with him. And he arose by night and struck the Edomites who had surrounded him and the captains of the chariots. But his army fled to their tents. So Edom revolted against Judah, even to this day. Then Libnah revolted at the same time. The rest of the acts of Joram and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? So Joram slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. Then Ahaziah, his son, became king in his place. In the 12th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, began to reign. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. Yeah. His mother's name was Athaliah, the granddaughter of Omri, king of Israel. And he walked in the way of the house of Ahab. Again, this is the people in Judah, right, who are now following after the kings of Israel, who are leading people in idolatry and human sacrifice, right? It wasn't prevalent yet. It gets real bad later. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord, like the house of Ahab had done, because he was the son-in-law of the house of Ahab. Then he went with Joram, the son of Ahab, to war against Hazael, king of Aram. This is the same Hazael we mentioned before, who killed his king, at Ramoth Gilead. And the Arameans wounded Joram. So King Joram returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds which the Arameans had inflicted on him at Ramah, when he fought against Hazael, king of Aram. Then Ahaziah, the son of Joram, king of Judah, went down to see Joram, the son of Ahab, in Jezreel, because he was sick. We get to more of this story tomorrow. Let's go to 1 Timothy chapter 5. Paul continues, "Do not sharply rebuke an older man, but rather appeal to him as a father. To the younger men as brothers, the older women as mothers, and the younger women as sisters, in all purity. Honor widows who are widows indeed. But if any widow has children or grandchildren, they must first learn to practice piety in regard to their own family, and to make some return to their parents, for this is acceptable in the sight of God." This may sound confusing. This is the fifth commandment, where it says, "Honor your father and mother, so it may go well with you all the days of your life." What this means is, it doesn't mean, it partially means, when your parents tell you, go pick up your stuff in your room, you go and pick up the stuff in your room. But it also means in the latter years of your parents' life, as they get older, you provide a place for them to live. You help them out with their bills. You take care of them as they took care of you. And the part where it's beneficial to you going forward is because you now have a multi-generational household where you have your parents who have lived through much, you have yourself, and then you have your children, and your parents can help raise your children with you so they get a much wider understanding of how things are. This is a completely foreign concept in today's society, where parents, as they get older, just put off in a home somewhere and you send them a card and never see them, or grandparents have you. And the parents will kind of box themselves off even from their own children, spending their time on their phones or gyms or whatever else they're planning on doing. And then the kids are just left to be raised by the government. This is not at all the way it was intended to be. So, what's being said here about widows? So when the way that society worked then was largely women didn't work at all. It was their job to take care of the home. So if their husbands died, well, then it was their son's job to take care of their needs. But if their sons had also died, those are those who are truly widows. They have no one to take care of them. Those who are not truly widows are those who have children to take care of them, or grandchildren. So this is where we see that they must first learn to practice piety, this is the children, in regard to their own family, and also make some return to their parents, for this is acceptable in the sight of God. All right, verse 5. "Now she who is a widow indeed, and who has been left alone, has fixed her hope on God, and continues in entreaties and prayers night and day." But she who gives herself to wanton pleasure is dead even while she lives. Prescribe these things as well, so that they may be above reproach. But if anyone does not provide for his own, as in his parents, right, and especially those of his own household, his children, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Why? Because he's revolting against God's standard for how the families are to be raised. A widow is to be put on the list only if she is not less than 60 years old, having been the wife of one man, having a reputation for good works, and if she has brought up children, if she has shown hospitality to strangers, if she has washed the saints' feet, not literally, but just taking care of those within the church, if she has assisted those in distress, and if she has devoted herself to every good work. This is in a list of things you have to check off and make sure you did all of these things. What it's saying is, if you are an active person within the church, and if you're caring for those who are caring for you, because you have no job, you have no children to take care of, so you have the freedom to do these things, assuming you have the ability to do so. But refuse to put younger widows on the list. Why? For when they feel sensual desires, they disregard Christ and want to get married, thus incurring condemnation because they have set aside their previous pledge. Previous pledge, what's this? When you are put on the widow list, you say that you will serve the church, and then the church serves you. But if you decide that you want to get married, you're forsaking your previous pledge to serve the church. Right. At the same time, they also learn to be idle. They go around from house to house, not merely idle, but also gossips and busybodies, talking about things not proper to mention. Therefore, I want younger widows to get married. Go out and find yourself a man. Bear children, keep house, and give the enemy no occasion for reproach. For some have already turned aside to follow Satan. If any woman who is a believer has dependent widows, she must assist them, and the church must not be burdened, so that it may assist those who are widows indeed. Now, concerning elders, the elders who rule well are to be considered worthy of double honor. This is honor meaning pay, right? Especially those who work hard at preaching and teaching, because they're devoting themselves only to this. They have to be able to take care of their families. For the scripture says, you shall not muzzle the ox while he is threshing, and the laborer is worthy of his wages. Do not receive an accusation against an elder except on the basis of 2 or 3 witnesses. Now, this sounds weird, and certain churches have used this to cover up things that they should not have covered up. But the point being made is this: we will have people from outside the church come in to attack people inside the church all the time. All accusations should definitely be followed up, but they should be validated and verified. Because you will get people, even people inside the church, who just for the sake of serving themselves, and while they may be false converts, they may be serving Satan within themselves, they may cause trouble inside the church just to cause dissension. If you've ever been part of any church ever, you have seen this. If you haven't seen it, maybe you're the guy. Just saying. There we go, verse 20. Those who continue in sin will rebuke in the presence of all, Matthew 18, so that the rest will be fearful of sinning. I solemnly charge you in the presence of God and of Christ Jesus and of his chosen angels to maintain these principles without bias, doing nothing in a spirit of partiality. Do not lay hands upon anyone too hastily. This doesn't mean to go out and grab someone and throw them out. It means don't appoint them to office right away. Even if you think, oh man, this will be a great person to bring in. No, they have to go through the same process everybody else does. As my pastor says, if John MacArthur happened to leave California and move to where we live and ask us to be part of our church, if he were to apply for the elder board, he wouldn't be thrown in right away. He would still have to go through the same process every other elder does. Now, we're pretty sure he would pass the flying colors, just saying. But if that were to happen, he would still have to go through the same process because we are not showing partiality. Back to the line. Do not lay hands upon anyone too hastily and thereby share responsibility for the sins of others. This also means don't just, be careful not to bring in a new convert. He's already mentioned this once. This comes up again later. And keep yourself free from sin. Again, this is a charge to a pastor, but this is also the same for everyone else within the church. And no longer drink water exclusively, but use a little wine for the sake of your stomach and your frequent ailments. So some things in Scripture are prescriptive. Some are descriptive. Prescriptive are things that we're told by God or through one of the apostles or something else. That's something we have to do all the time. Some are descriptive, where it tells us about something that we see happening. Like when, I can't think of the guy's name, Manasseh the king, which we'll read about later, sacrifices his children in the temple to false idols he's put up in the church, in the temple of God in Jerusalem. That's descriptive. With descriptive things, we read about things that have happened and we go, we shouldn't do that. Not in all cases. Some are descriptive to just say that some things have taken place. This is one of those to say, Paul is looking out for his child in the faith, Timothy, who has stomach problems, and he's telling him, drink a little wine. It'll help your stomach. It'll settle it. This doesn't mean that everybody should drink wine. If you have a problem with wine, and according to Romans 14, this is something that you struggle with, don't drink wine because you're violating your conscience. I know Scripture says right here, drink a little wine for the sake of your stomach. This doesn't mean you have to, right? We have to be mindful about these things. Anyway, that said, back to the text, verse 24. The sins of some men are quite evident, going before them to judgment. For others, their sins follow after. Look at you, Ravi Zacharias. Likewise also, deeds that are good are quite evident, and those which are otherwise cannot be concealed. All right, that is all of the text and notes so far. Let's go on to Daniel chapter 12. Now, if you remember, first off, this is the last chapter in Daniel. Tomorrow we start Hosea. We have been, since chapter 9, Daniel saw a bunch of visions, and they were very confusing for him. And he asked for someone to explain it to him. And at the end of chapter 9, it said, God is saying, I'll send an angel to you to help you with that. Chapter 10, we see that he has been mourning and not drinking or eating anything for 3 weeks. So he's very weak. And an angel shows up and feeds him and says, sit up. And he goes, but I'm very tired. Well, yeah, because you haven't eaten in 3 weeks, dummy. Eat something. So he waits till he's better. And then he says, essentially, I am the angel who is sent to help you. I've been off doing other things. He's giving not excuses, but explanations for why he wasn't there. And then in chapter 11, he's just lays out the entire future of the entire Mesopotamian region. Everything that's going to happen in that space from where they are right when this is being written, basically to the rise of Rome, right? That's all laid out for him. He just basically says, here's what all future is going to be for you. Welcome to the next 700, 500 or so years of what's going to take place, right? It's a lot. But again, just so you know, and I've said this every single time, I'm going to keep saying it, read the notes. There's a lot of stuff in here that's going to be confusing. I don't have the time to go into detail on it. There's a lot of really great notes in here on it. I would recommend, if you want to read anything on the book of Daniel, look into Ligonier Ministries. They have a lot of really great information on it. I would normally recommend stuff from John MacArthur's church, Grace Church in Shepherd's. I was going to say Shepherd's Conference, but basically from his school, the Master's Seminary. But he's dispensational. And if you're a dispensational person, absolutely go and read his stuff on it. But if you're not, like me, well, hold on, let me rephrase that. If you're not dispensational, like me, and you are either amill or post-mill or some mix therein, there's a lot of other good stuff out there to go over on this. I have a strong recommendation for Kim Riddlebarger's book, Amillennialism 101. Or he has a course on it called Amillennialism 101. And if you go to monergism.org, you can actually download all of that for free. His entire course as taught by Kim Riddlebarger. It's great. And you can also look up other things there. All of that said, eschatology, which literally means the study of the last things, is a very in-depth thing. I strongly recommend that you read through all the notes that we've gone through here, and then you read other books by other people. There's a lot of really good stuff out there. Just do not read the late, great Planet Earth. It's a mess. Okay. Or the Left Behind books. Those are fiction for a reason. Okay, let's move on. So now we're going to wrap up the book of Daniel. Now, at that time, Michael, the great prince who stands guard over the sons of your people. So it's not Michael who's saying it. It's the other angel who I think gives his name, but I forgot. Okay. He will arise. And there will be a time of distress such as has never occurred since there was a nation until that time. And at that time, your people, everyone who is, I can read words today. Everyone who is found written in the book, that's the book of life, which us Christians are in too, will be rescued. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the ground, the dead, will awake. They'll be resurrected. And these to everlasting life, but the others to disgrace and everlasting contempt. Those who have insight will shine brightly, like the brightness of the expanse of heaven, and those who lead the many to righteousness, like stars, or like the stars forever and ever. But as for you, Daniel, conceal these words and seal up the book until the end of time. Many will go back and forth, and knowledge will increase. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, 2 others were standing, one on this bank of the river, and one on that bank of the river. And one said to the man dressed in linen, who was above the waters of the river? How long will it be till the end of these wonders? And I heard the man dressed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, and he raised his right hand and his left hand toward heaven, and swore by him who lives forever, that it would be for a time, times, and half a time. And as soon as they finished shattering the power of the holy people, all these events will be completed. As for me, I heard, but I could not understand. So I said, my Lord, what will be the outcome of these events? And he said, go your way, Daniel. For these words are concealed and sealed up until the end time. Many will be purged, purified, and refined, but the wicked will act wickedly. Heathen's going to heathe. And none of the wicked will understand, but Those who have insight will understand. That's the elect. From the time that the regular sacrifice is abolished and the abomination of desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days. How blessed is he who keeps waiting and attains to the 1,335 days. Read the notes, look it up, read books. But as for you, go your way till the end, and you will enter into rest and rise again for your allotted portion at the end of the age. And there is all of the notes. Let's move on to Psalm 119, verses 49 through 72. Zayin. Remember the word to your servant, in which you have made me hope. This is my comfort in my affliction, that your word has revived me. The arrogant utterly deride me, yet I do not turn aside from your law. I have remembered your ordinances from of old, O Lord, and comfort myself. Burning indignation has seized me because of the wicked, who forsake your law. Your statutes are my songs in the house of my pilgrimage. O Lord, I remember your name in the night, and keep your law. This has become mine, that I observe your precepts. Heth. The Lord is my portion. I have promised to keep your words. I sought your favor with all my heart. Be gracious to me according to your word. I considered my ways and turned my feet to your testimonies. I hastened and did not delay to keep your commandments. The cords of the wicked have encircled me, but I have not forgotten your law. At midnight I shall rise to give thanks to you, because of your righteous ordinances. I am a companion of all those who fear you, and of those who keep your precepts. The earth is full of your loving kindness, O Lord. Teach me your statutes. Teth. You have dealt well with your servant, O Lord, according to your word. Teach me good discernment and knowledge, for I believe in your commandments. Before I was afflicted, I went astray, but now I keep your word. You are good and do good. Teach me your statutes. The arrogant have forged a lie against me. With all my heart I will observe your precepts. Their heart is covered with fat, but I delight in your law. It is good for me that I was afflicted, that I may learn your statutes. The law of your mouth is better to me than thousands of gold and silver pieces. And that is all of the notes, and that is all of the text. All right. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow. Behold, the word of the Lord.